in the energy sector to champion energy independence and dominance. I'm determined to defend the unborn, secure our borders, uphold our Second Amendment rights, and bring the same level of transparency that we've upheld locally. I hope to earn your support.
Paid for by Bird for Congress.
The Utah RV Palooza is back and packed with new and used RVs to fit every budget. June 20th through the 22nd, come to the largest free RV show in the area at the shops at Southtown and Sandy. You'll find monthly payments starting under $149 on approved credit for select new RVs like a new 2024 GoPlay 19 BH travel trailer. You'll also find huge savings on used motorhomes. We've got select 2023 and 2024 low mileage models from Thor and Jayco heavily discounted. The best deals don't last, so start shopping now at Bishes.com/Utah RV Palooza Sandy. And make sure you tour the full lineup of GoPlay travel trailers, one of the fastest growing RV brands in Utah. Get special financing options like 90 days of all play and no pay OAC. And if you've got a trade, we want it. Get an additional $1,000 toward your travel trailer or fifth wheel trade-in. See dealer for details. Admission is free to the Utah RV Palooza, Thursday, June 20th through Saturday, June 22nd at the shops at Southtown and Sandy. Sponsored by Bishes RV. Stock number L75163 based on 20% down, 8.99% APR for 180 months. Subject to prior sales. See dealer for details.
My wife and I always loved doing everything together. Jiu-jitsu, kayaking, and intimacy was always on point. It was around my early 30s when I noticed a downward trend. Watching a lot of TV, putting on weight, and just full of self-doubt. I had tried another men's clinic with disappointing results. It's the personalized treatment I receive at Revive Men's Health that has been the complete game changer for me. I've got my energy and motivation back, I'm feeling stronger than I did in my 20s, and it made me a much better husband to my wife.
I'm Eric Ramos, healthcare provider at Revive Men's Health. If you are always feeling tired or moody, have a difficult time sleeping, or decreased libido, you may be suffering from low testosterone.
Book your free T-check and exam at Revive Men's Health, Salt Lake City. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We have a vehicle fire in Parley's Canyon, eastbound I-80. It's about a mile prior to Lambs Canyon. It is blocking a right lane of travel and causing delays, but they've pretty much doused the fire and the smoke has cleared. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
It'll be hot again today with a high near 100, and a cooling trend starts tomorrow with highs in the 70s expected by Monday and Tuesday. Right now at 93 degrees and sunny, I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, last night wrapped up the pre-debate season, going into the primary next on the 25th. Of course, a lot of those ballots have already hit your mailbox and should be on your kitchen table or should be back in the box heading in if you're doing it by mail. And the final debate of the season was the 3rd Congressional District debate that took center stage last night. Of course, we covered that here on KSL News Radio. And this is for an open seat. Of course, incumbent Representative John Curtis moving on to run for the United States Senate. So this is an open seat, a rare opportunity there. And in a debate that had 5 candidates on the stage, I want to talk about something that was also on the stage, but we don't usually talk about. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, 5 candidates on a stage is a difficult thing to handle. There's not that much time to go around. But I thought the 3rd Congressional debate last night was actually the best of all the debates in the primary debate season here in the state of Utah. And I think a lot of that was due to the fact that, one, the candidates did their job, stayed in their lanes, and respected the process and did it with dignity and respect. And I think it was also because of the moderator. Thomas Wright did an extraordinary job last night of not just reading questions, but of actually facilitating a discussion and a debate. And so I want to talk about that for just a minute before we get into the candidates, what they did, and where that all goes as we march towards the 25th and the primary election here in the state of Utah. I thought that Thomas Wright, we don't normally spend a lot of time talking about who the moderators were, what they did, but Thomas Wright did an extraordinary job last night in that he did get past just the canned answers that candidates are both expected to give. And to be honest, a lot of the framing of debates of late have only allowed candidates to give those very superficial talking point, soundbite kinds of answers. And so I've always complained that we can't complain. We can't complain as voters that we don't get any real depth out of a debate if the structure of the debate doesn't allow the candidates to get beyond those talking points. In other words, if you give a very canned question and give a candidate 30 or 60 seconds to respond, and only 30 or 60 seconds to respond, of course you're going to get a very soundbite-driven kind of response. And so I thought last night we got past that better than in any of the other debates that took place over the last few days here in the state of Utah, because Thomas Wright went deeper. He said, I'm going to ask a follow-up. I want to know a specific. Give me something you would do. How would you address this? Would you vote for this or that? And so it did change the dynamic of the debate. And I thought all of those that were on the stage did a very nice job in responding to those. And I thought the interesting thing was that the fact that they were able to speak longer and to dig in a little deeper on some of these subjects actually gives you the differentiating factors of each of the candidates, which you don't get when everyone's going for the soundbite, because then everybody sounds the same. Again, whether it's a Democratic primary debate or a Republican primary debate, there's usually not a wide range of difference in terms of the principles or policy. So you have to get to some pretty granular stuff to start seeing the difference, or to start envisioning, how would this person lead? How would they do it different? What would it look like if they were standing on the floor of the House of Representatives? What would they do in a committee hearing? How would they approach a piece of legislation? And for what I saw last night as I watched the debate, I thought the candidates J.R. Byrd, John Dougall, Mike Kennedy, Case Lawrence, and Stuart Pay all did a really great job of representing their view and their approach. And I think the approach matters in terms of what is it that kind of guides their compass? What is it that they use to orient themselves in terms of the role of the federal government versus the state government? A lot of good conversations around that last night. And I thought each of the candidates did a great job of doing that. So I want to hit just a couple of quick hit things from each of the candidates that I thought worked well for them in that third congressional debate. J.R. Byrd, I thought, did a very nice job, of course, from Roosevelt as the mayor there. And he did a good job of saying, hey, wait a minute, when we talk about the third congressional district, there are differences. There are differences in terms of what the needs are from a voter or a citizen along the Wasatch Front versus one that's in a rural part of the district. And he actually described that in a really powerful way in terms of the tensions that get created between rural and urban, and how you have to approach those and do it in a way that represents everyone, not just one or the other. And so while it was interesting to see there is a lot of overlap, there were also some distinct differences, and I thought J.R. Byrd did a nice job of doing that. John Dougall, as you would expect, he was very strong on the fiscal policy issues, and I thought he did a really nice job last night of stringing together kind of some think again moments in terms of a lot of things that we don't normally associate with debt and deficit spending. And so problems not just on the border, problems not just in terms of $34 trillion of national debt, but things impacting home prices, things impacting inflation, things impacting health care that are also connected to the way government spends money. And so I thought that was a really interesting thing from John Dougall. And, of course, that is his strong suit, and he leaned into that heavy last night. Dr. Mike Kennedy, I thought he had some really interesting moments because he has this unique ability to look at it as a doctor, as a lawyer, and as a legislator. So I think that's an interesting perspective in terms of what Mike Kennedy brings to the table. And so he would look at things and policy from all of those perspectives. And obviously as a sitting Utah senator, that gives him a unique look into a lot of the issues and how you actually navigate that kind of legislation and that legislative process. Stuart Pay, of course, with his military background, I think he was clearly the strongest in terms of the need for American leadership in the world and why that matters. He was unique in terms of his approach to what's going on in Ukraine and with Russia right now. And in fact, we are watching as we speak. President Joe Biden and President Zelensky of Ukraine are holding a press conference after just signing a new security deal. We're going to break that down heavy coming up at 2:05, so don't go anywhere. We'll go to their comments. We'll talk about what the deal is and is not. We'll break that down and get some analysis on that for you during the 2 o'clock hour today. So again, I thought Stuart Pay did a nice job of painting the picture. It reminded me a little bit of what we talked about a few weeks ago with Condoleezza Rice, saying that real powers, real leaders don't just mind their own business. They shape the future. And often when we try to avoid any entanglement at any cost, we end up having bigger entanglements at greater cost. And I thought Stuart Pay did a good job of that. And then finally, Case Lawrence, the entrepreneur and business owner of the group, was exceptionally strong. I thought for someone who is new to the political space, he presented himself incredibly well and had a great grasp not only of the issues, but of a vision in terms of what leadership looks like to him in the United States Congress. I think in terms of policy and principle and the fact that Utah can lead out in a lot of important conversations, whether it's about climate and the environment, whether it's about tax policy, or things that are just going to impact Utahns, and those of the 3rd Congressional District as it relates to the economy, to jobs, inflation. I thought he was very, very strong in that space. So 5 very strong candidates. They all stayed in their lane. It was very civil. And again, a big kudo to Thomas Wright for doing a better debate, getting people beyond just the talking points, getting that follow-up question, which is really the test. And I think we can go even further with our debates. I think we've got to really dismantle them and reframe them in terms of what kinds of conversations do we want to have, because this is a job interview in many aspects, and you'd never accept a surface or a canned answer to someone applying for an important job. There are a few jobs that are as important, that impact the country, that impact us right here at home. And so my vote is we start thinking again about what we think we know, about what a debate could be, what it should be, and ultimately what we make it together. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Are you using the KSL News Radio app to listen to your favorite shows whenever you want? You can podcast Utah's morning news even after it's finished at 9. You can listen to David Najanovic or Boyd Matheson. Just click on the podcast tab. And you can stream Jeff Kaplan live between 3 and 7 right from the player. All of those shows, plus the KSL Greenhouse and Cougar Sports Saturday, they're on the app for KSL News Radio. KSL News Radio.
Well, it's been 5 months. Time to check in on those New Year's resolutions you made to lose weight. How'd it go? I asked because once I started my health journey with my friends at Soda Weight Loss, it took me just over 5 months to let go of 70 pounds of fat weight. And even better, I did it all from the convenience of home with no office visits, injections, crazy workouts, or fad diets. What I did have was access to a certified dietitian like Avery.
I feel like you're enrolling in like a school of nutrition with a whole new perspective on what food is and what it does for your body.
Soda helped me retrain myself and change the lifelong food habits that got me where I was in the first place.
I think the accountability is the game changer for everything.
So, how fast do you want to let go of that weight for good? Go to sodaweightloss.com and save 15% by clicking one simple button, Request a Nutritionist Callback. A Soda nutritionist will be on the line before you know it, and you'll be on your way to looking and feeling like you've wanted to. That's SOTAweightloss.com. Don't forget, Soda stands for State of the Art.
Progressive presents 10 things on a plumber's to-do list that are harder than getting a small business insurance quote. Waking up for 5 a.m. plumbing disasters, finding out why water is pouring from the ceiling, replacing a pipe in a home from the 1800s, then dealing with invoices or your awkward apprentice or that really weird smell, and then there's breathing and eating and, of course, clogs. But the easiest thing on any small business owner's to-do list? Seeing if you could save on the business insurance that's right for you. Get a quote in as little as 7 minutes at ProgressiveCommercial.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company. Coverage provided and serviced by affiliated and third-party insurers.
Every business faces challenges, but complicated, expensive, and uncertain shipping shouldn't be one of them. With USPS Ground Advantage from the United States Postal Service, you can avoid all the noise. No more unexpected surcharges, hidden fees, or complex rate structures. It's just easy, cost-effective, and dependable shipping. Tune your business's frequency to success and turn shipping to your advantage. Learn how at USPS.com/advantage. USPS Ground Advantage. Simple, affordable, reliable.
Discover the best of senior living at Trio Orem and Trio South Ogden. Today's older adults aren't wrapping up their life's journey, they're seeking a new one. And Trio Independent Living is here to help them do just that. With a smart, modern, and connected lifestyle, residents cultivate relationships and maximize independence through signature programs like Prime Fit Wellness that bring living well and well-being to life. Welcome to the new age of senior living. Schedule your visit at leisurecare.com/Utah today.
Debbie Myler, wife of Attorney General candidate Frank Myler. Candidates speak theoretically about helping the oppressed and abused. Frank actually does that. I know because I work with him. He's actively fought these battles for years, providing free legal advice to people in some of the most desperate situations. I've seen the fruits of Frank's labors. We want an Attorney General who cares. Frank is that person. Vote Frank Myler for Utah Attorney General.
This is Frank Myler, and I approve this ad. Paid for by the committee to elect Frank Myler Attorney General.
Let's face it, nothing makes you look older than you really are than thinning hair. But what if you could not only increase your hair count, but promote new hair growth without surgery, without drugs with potential side effects, and without a prescription from your doctor? Well, now you can, thanks to a breakthrough new supplement called Hair Grow. Provided by New Nordic, the #1 supplier of dietary supplements in Europe. Hair Grow is now available in the U.S. Only Hair Grow contains Tocogaya, a powerful antioxidant that has received a U.S. patent. Multiple clinical studies show Hair Grow is safe and effective in promoting new hair growth. In one study, 95% of the patients using Hair Grow saw increased hair count. Don't lose more time and more hair. Try Hair Grow today to feel and look your best. Available online at Amazon, Walmart.com, and NewNordicUSA.com, or in stores at your local CVS. Look younger and feel more confident with Hair Grow by New Nordic at NewNordicUSA.com, or in stores at your local CVS.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
We are really thrilled to have joining us on the program today John Kenneth White, a professor emeritus at the Catholic University of America, and had a fantastic piece in The Hill. You can check it out at thehill.com. As it relates to history, you've heard me say it on this show a number of times that whatever we ignore or forget, our children are not likely to know, and what our children don't know, our grandchildren are very unlikely to possess. And I think that's why history matters, and making sure it's part of the process and part of what our young people get from the beginning of their K through 12 on to college campuses as well. And John, it's so great to have you on the program. Just give us a little sense in terms of what kind of driving focus. You've taught on college campus. You know what it means to educate young people about history and civics and civility. Give us a sense of why this is so crucial in our national conversation now.
Well, first, thank you very much for having me. It is crucial because, as I wrote in the piece, I think, and talking with other educators and historians and political scientists, we're losing our sense of history. We're not only ignorant of some basic facts of American governance, but we're also, I think, increasingly ignorant of our story. Now, our story is complicated and it's nuanced and it's not a simplistic story, but it's an important one. And I think it's important because America is more than a place, as I wrote in the piece. It's founded on a set of ideals and values. And knowing about the facts of our governance, but also the nuances and importance of history, that is so important because, as I concluded in the piece, without facts, without knowledge about our story, then it's subject to be rewritten by others. And that's to the detriment not only of our country and our polity and our politics, but I think a great loss to the world as well.
No question about that. And you quote in your piece, of course, the late, great Dr. McCullough, and someone who understood how important that history is and who fretted about the historical illiteracy rising in the country, and what that does is we conflate things. As it seems to me that in many educational settings, everything's being so flattened, either for fear of not wanting to have something controversial at a school board meeting, or because we just don't have time to teach it anymore because we've been so focused on STEM and other subjects. Talk us through why it matters that we actually get a warts and all, not just warts, and not just dates and facts, to make sure we do have a citizenry that is historically literate.
Yeah, sure. I was actually in the audience at a different venue, the National Archives, when McCullough made the same point about the lack of history, even among our Ivy League institutions and the honor students that he taught way back in the 1990s. Look, it's just so important, I think, that we have an understanding of our history, and yet, as you say, it's being replaced by emphasis on STEM, and particularly as we've gone to testing since the early 2000s that emphasize reading and math. So the teaching of civics and history is sometimes seen as a luxury, and as McCullough wrote, often it's taught by people without any background in history, almost as a kind of an elective. The other thing I would just point out is I was at facilitating a conference for high school civics teachers at the Freedom Foundation in Pennsylvania, and so many of them, were just under siege, is the best way of putting it. They felt not only belittled by their principals, if you will, that, well, this isn't really that important. It's kind of a luxury that we have you to teach this course, but also the least little comment that they would make would provoke angry calls and feedback from parents who, in our politically polarized world, every little thing that may be said in the classroom is either exaggerated, misinterpreted. And so many of these teachers felt that they were walking on eggshells.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting. I think that ability to remember, to look back, and I want to go back to, you mentioned just the testing and what we're testing for these days. We've been focused on this show about the fact that much of our education is testing for recall as opposed to reflection and kind of the deeper thinking of a lot of those. And it was one of my favorite things in Washington, D.C. I got to actually sit in the Library of Congress with David McCullough, who said history is not a collection of dates and events and battles. It's an endless river of ideals to be explored. And it seems that we've lost that in our teaching, and your mind, when it gets to recall, it's sort of done. But I think what we need in the nation, and what the founders clearly showed, was that curiosity is a big part of both our history and our future.
Oh, that's 100% right. And you were so fortunate to have that encounter with David McCullough as I was many years ago. And it's true, not only for political scientists, but historians, to understand that river of ideas and values. I've written so much in my career about the importance of values in our politics. And again, it's not enough to pick up history from social media, for example, which is often quite inaccurate, or to silo yourself in the world that social media creates. That, again, allows people that want to rewrite history to do so, but they're doing it with a clean slate in the mind of whoever is listening too often.
That is so crucial, that if we're not teaching history, then it allows those who do want to rewrite it or recreate it or completely abandon it, it gives them a blank slate because there's nothing to compare it to. If you've got a young person, especially, who hasn't been taught history or who hasn't had the time to dig in and work through some of those things, that becomes a very dangerous space to be. I want to close out with just one other thing from your piece in The Hill. and you talk about the polarization in our politics and what's happening. And you had a beautiful play. We often talk about out of many one, e pluribus unum, and you actually frame that in a different way that I think is really important for us to be careful of, especially as we look at history.
Right, and that was e pluribus duo, out of many two Americas that are siloed, two Americas that don't speak to one another, two Americas that live in very different realities. And when you have that kind of separation and political division, then again, history is written by one side or the other without any attention to the nuances and complexities of our story.
What is the one thing that you wish all of us as citizens of this country would think differently or do differently as it relates to history and the history of this nation?
Sure. I don't get to write the titles for my columns. The Hill does that, but my working title was An Ode to Historians. Because I do think that was the nub of the piece. And I think what's so important is, first, for us, we can still do this as citizens and even as older people like myself, to study history, to read it, to listen to it. And I think what we need to do differently is to listen to others with opposing views. Not necessarily that we might change their minds, because that in so many cases just doesn't seem possible, but to gain a greater understanding and maybe to point out some historical analogies or differences that either their views confirm different periods of American history and different ideas and values, or contradict them. And perhaps that's a better way to approach things.
I love that, and it is both an ode to history and an ode to historians, and I think it's actually an ode to our future. All of those things have to come together. John Kenneth White is Professor Emeritus at the Catholic University of America. A great piece in the Hill, and we look forward to having you back to continue this conversation. I think it's one of the most important. We're losing our ability to remember, and when we lose that, we're in danger of losing a great deal more. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Look forward to it.
Stepping aside for bottom of the hour news, more Inside Sources coming up next.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Lake Powell is 40,000 acre-feet of water lighter than it should be. The Bureau of Land Management tells the Colorado Sun they accidentally sent it downstream while shifting millions of acre-feet of water around the Colorado River Basin. Utah's Colorado River Commissioner, Gene Shawcroft, says under the circumstances...
That's very good operation based on the complexity and the volumes of water that were being shifted.
That much water is enough to supply about 40,000 Utah households for a year. Won't be put back, but Shawcroft says it will be credited to what Utah and the Upper Basin states are obligated to send to the Lower Basin each year. UDOT plans to repair the bridges on Bangerter Highway over the 21st South Freeway this weekend. They'll close the bridges over Highway 201 at 8 o'clock Friday night, reopen them at 5 a.m. on Monday. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The U.S. Supreme Court decided today that a group challenging the FDA approval of mifepristone didn't have legal standing in that case. That means the drug most commonly used for abortions in this country is still legal. But states are allowed to regulate abortions. Some of them have made mifepristone illegal, and those restrictions still stand. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down on the day, 86 points. The NASDAQ is up 48. And our KSL weather looks like another hot day on hand. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:31.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly, completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
At KSL News Radio, we have a 30-year legacy of honoring Utah teachers. but we can't do it without your help. Please tell us about an important teacher in your life on the KSL Teacher Tribute Wall, presented by Cypress Credit Union. Each month, one lucky teacher wins a $500 gift card from Cypress Credit Union, a $250 gift card to Harmon's, plus season tickets to Hale Center Theater. Say thanks to your teacher today at kslnewsradio.com/teacher from Cypress Credit Union and KSL News Radio.
You've been working so hard to keep your lawn and garden looking good. Maybe it's time to make your home look incredible with new window frames and double-pane glass from Advanced Window Products. If you can imagine it, they can create it at their factory in Salt Lake City. Any style, any color, security enhancements to keep your family safe. All this and factory direct pricing. You're buying local and paying less. So seal up your home and reap the energy savings with Advanced Window Products, where they've been creating windows for 38 years. No subcontractors, they're not resellers. They build the windows, they install the windows, and they guarantee them for life. And right now at their summer special, get an extra $2,500 off on 10 windows or more. They offer 0% financing and even buy now, pay later. Busy season's just hitting. Call now. Advanced Window Products, $2,500 off. But you have to call 801-850-9100. That's 801-850-9100. Or go to advancedwindowsusa.com.
Hey, my name is Chris Stewart. The question I have is, who can best represent us in Congress? And the answer to me is clearly Celeste. So in my life, I've been around some of the strongest leaders in the world. What is it that makes a good leader? Humility. The humility to listen, to actually consider what it is that they want, to try to help people. That's Celeste to her core. Celeste has shown up for me. She'll show up for you. She shows up for Utah.
Paid for by Celeste for Congress.
Are you drowning in a sea of papers? Is your desk or kitchen table buried under mountains of old unwanted documents? Great news! The information destruction experts at Shred-it are hosting a free community Shred-it event. You can shred with the pros this Friday, June 14th from 2 to 7 p.m. and Saturday, June 15th from 2 to 6 p.m. at the John M. Huntsman Center. Here's your chance to securely dispose of all your unwanted, sensitive documents and protect your personal information from falling into the wrong hands. Bring your old tax records, academic records, financial statements, medical bills, and any other documents that you no longer need. Shred-it trucks will be on site to destroy them. And the best part, the shredding event is free and open to the public. Mark your calendars for this weekend and gather all those unwanted papers cluttering your space. Don't miss this free community Shred-it event brought to you by Shred-it. Shred the mess and safeguard your information. Visit shredit.com to learn more about how you can protect your personal information.
Everyone knows that summer is made for fun. What are you doing for fun this year? Lagoon is Utah's home for summer fun and is now open daily. Don't miss out on all the fun and excitement you can only find at Lagoon. Purchase your season passport today and enjoy all the rides you love and Laguna Beach, Pioneer Village, and live entertainment all summer long. And don't forget, Frightmare's in the fall. See lagoonpark.com for information and to purchase your season passport today. Lagoon, now open daily.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
Crews are still on the scene of this vehicle fire in Parley's Canyon, eastbound I-80, about a mile prior to Lambs Canyon. That right lane is blocked. Some unusual slowdown southbound I-15 from the south interchange to just past 7200 South. No accident reported there. Just be prepared to slow down. The UACPA supports certified public accountants in Utah through ongoing professional education and leadership development. Find a CPA that works for you, uacpa.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Hot again today with a high near 100. A cooling trend, though, starts tomorrow with highs in the 70s expected by Monday and Tuesday. Right now, 93 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, we get to this time of the year, and it is Super Bowl season for Supreme Court watchers. The headlines today cover a wide range of rulings, some that we've been covering and been looking at, some that have some pretty interesting nuances underneath all of those particular rulings. And we have things that will implicate and have implications on things from abortion to labor rights to a host of other things. And so we want to dig into what you need to know about all of those things. And, of course, we turn to the Super Bowl champion of Supreme Court watching, Kelsey Dallas, assistant managing editor for the Deseret News, and someone we always turn to for all things Supreme Court. And Kelsey, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, and what a kind compliment.
A new title for you. We'll send you a T-shirt and a hat, maybe. Well, as you look at the Supreme Court, this is that time of the year when rulings start to come out, and we know one of those big ones had to do with access to abortion, the abortion pill. Describe to us what the court ruled and why.
Yes, so there was a big ruling this morning. It was on an abortion-inducing pill called mifepristone. Basically, the justices were weighing in on a case that dealt with the FDA guidelines for that pill, whether it could be made available through the mail, if it was appropriate to offer it up to the 10th week of pregnancy. And the Supreme Court, somewhat surprisingly, issued a unanimous ruling that was based on standing. So they said that this group of doctors who were challenging the FDA's guidelines didn't have the proper standing to have filed the challenge. So they didn't weigh in on the safety of the pill or the FDA's rationale for the guidelines. They just said that the lawsuit shouldn't have made it this far. And it was notable that all 9 of them were together in that decision, speaking with one voice on this abortion-related issue 2 years after the contentious ruling overturning Roe v. Wade, where it was the conservatives versus the liberals.
Yeah, and it's always interesting to me when you have these unanimous decisions by the court, and you always have to look underneath the headline. What were they really doing? And this was really about the issue of standing, if anyone had standing in this case, as opposed to the merits of the pill, the process, or the FDA.
Well, and they were all together on the majority ruling, which was written by Justice Brett Kavanaugh. The other 2 decisions that were released today in lesser-known cases, it's just interesting to point out that they were also unanimous as to the result. There were several concurrences and even a very specific partial dissent in one of them. But it was just quite a Thursday that the Supreme Court had, because they sort of stood together on these 3 cases in a way that doesn't usually happen.
Yeah, and let's get into some of those. One of those had to do with unions and Starbucks in particular.
Yes, that wasn't one of the cases that I was following, so you might know more about it than I do.
Okay, and that one I thought was interesting in terms of just kind of the employment law. I thought that was kind of an interesting one that came out today. Of course, we're also keeping our eye on the Chevron doctrine case, which we know is coming soon. Are you getting any sense on that one in terms of how that one might play out?
Yes, that's huge. And there is a story today on Deseret.com from one of my colleagues, Hannah Syriac, about what that means in the Utah context, specifically on things like water rights and land use. So what the Chevron doctrine case involves is how to resolve tension when Congress hasn't said specifically what a law or how a law is meant to be applied. And it gives a lot of power to federal agencies to determine what it means to follow up on sort of a general guidance that Congress has written into a policy. And it can cause a lot of tension because if the agency seems to have unfairly focused on some really specific thing, like the cases originated around a fee that fishermen had to pay, what are you supposed to do as a fisherman to challenge that agency decision when since the 1980s, the courts have been leaning towards federal agents and saying, okay, we're just going to go with what they're doing. So that's a pretty significant one to watch for. And it did during oral arguments seem like that several of the justices were interested in overturning what's become known as the Chevron doctrine.
Yeah, I think that one is so interesting. You mentioned the fishermen, and it was a case where Congress had kind of passed a sweeping rule, which they love to do, and then and said, we need to, of course, we want to have safety, and we want to make sure that those that are fishing are doing it right and according to laws and healthy standards. But then they left it pretty blank and open in terms of what the agency could do to decide what that is and isn't, and the agency ultimately decided that they would put actual agents on the fishing boats, but then that they they decided, not Congress, that the fishermen would have to pay for those employees to be on the boat. And so it's just one example of where when Congress talks in generalities, the agency will deal with the specifics, and that usually ends up in a court case.
Well, and the interesting thing is that if the Supreme Court overturns that past decision, gets rid of what's called Chevron deference or the Chevron doctrine, it makes Congress's job harder because if they want something to happen, they need to really spell out how it's going to happen. And that actually, there's a couple cases like that. The other one that comes to my mind was the Supreme Court is considering whether a ban on bump stocks, which are used to turn semi-automatic weapons into more automatic weapons, whether that ban can remain in place or if it was inappropriate how the Trump administration had put it into place using an old law that has to do with machine guns. So that's just a long way to say that if the Supreme Court overturns that Trump-era guidance, it would then be squarely on Congress's shoulders to make future gun decisions, because it would be clear that the executive branch doesn't have the ability to sort of create these workarounds where they're like, oh, you know, that new type of gun, that's a machine gun, and so that means I can do this. So it's really interesting that the Supreme Court has to make these decisions about what Congress is up to that have been created by the fact that Congress hasn't really been up to much, that they've been gridlocked for quite a while.
Yeah, and I actually love it. I'm rooting for the Supreme Court on this one because I think we should force both the political parties and every member of Congress to actually do the job and to fully write a law and not just to do. I remember looking at some bills when I was back there as a chief of staff, and there were just blank pages, or, you know, we hereby bequeath to the agency the ability to decide what this is and isn't and what the penalties are and to enforce the penalties. It's like, no, that's your job to write the law. And so I'm rooting for the Supreme Court to get this one right and put Congress squarely back to work so they can actually be accountable for it. Real quick, Kelsey, before I let you go, any others that we should be keeping our eye on as we head towards the end of June?
Yes, there's a couple more. One, as I mentioned, today's ruling was about the abortion pill. There's still another abortion case that's out of Idaho. It has to do with emergency abortions. So in a state that has almost totally banned abortion, do emergency care providers have to provide them in situations where the woman's life is at risk? It's a fight between Idaho and the Biden administration. There's also the perhaps biggest of all, which is the question of presidential immunity. Former President Donald Trump brought this case because of saying that the special counsel's case against him for allegedly interfering with the 2020 election, whether that case can even be brought, because Trump would argue that that was his official work that he was doing. So that's a very big one. And then last but not least, for listeners in the West, there is a question about efforts to limit sleeping outside for members of the homeless community. It's out of Oregon. And I just think of that one when I think of Salt Lake City, because obviously Utah leaders have had to talk about homelessness quite a bit in recent years. So whatever the Supreme Court says about bans on public sleeping, it could hold ramifications for Utah.
Yeah, great stuff as always, Kelsey Dallas. Best of the best when it comes to the Supreme Court. Assistant Managing Editor for the Deseret News. You can check out all her pieces at Deseret.com. Kelsey, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, we'll step aside for a quick break. More Inside Sources coming up next.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Do you find it exhausting getting up from your favorite chair every day? Say goodbye to discomfort and hello to a world of ease. Hi, I'm Jay Broadbent with Alpine Home Medical, and you have so many options when buying a lift chair. For the highest quality, always come to Alpine. Our lift chairs are more than just furniture. They're your ticket to independence and relaxation. Plus, with our spring savings event, we've just marked down some of our chairs that are ready for you to take home. With an unbelievable warranty, you can shop with confidence knowing your comfort is our priority. So stop by any of our 11 locations today and explore our high-quality inventory, or visit us online at alpinehomemedical.com. That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
I'm I'm Jason Walton, candidate for U.S. Senate. I'm recording from the Tucson sector of our southern border, and nobody's here. Our government should defend our territory, but President Biden, Mitch McConnell, and career politicians are funding war in other countries while the cartels are waging unchecked war here on American soil. I'm standing up to build the wall, end catch and release, and secure the border. Stand with me.
I'm Jason Walton. The cost of food, gas, and interest rates have all risen because career politicians are addicted to spending, causing the federal debt to go up and our money's value to go down. My opponents are all big spending career politicians, but I'll stop runaway inflation by passing a balanced budget amendment, forcing the government to spend only what we give them. I'm Jason Walton, a Republican candidate for U.S. Senate, and I approve this message. Paid for by Friends of Jason Walton for Senate.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single line 1, 5, and 10 gig data plans with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plans offered by T-Mobile and Verizon January 2024.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance engineer, he hears things differently. To the untrained ear, everything on his shop floor might sound fine, but he can hear gears grinding or a belt slipping. So he steps in to fix the problem at hand before it gets out of hand. And he knows Grainger's got the right product he needs to get the job done, which is music to his ears. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Visit the contest page on KSLNewsRadio.com. This week, you could win a 4-pack of tickets to Lagoon. Lagoon, it's what fun is. Or win tickets to see an upcoming Real Salt Lake and Utah Royals home match at America First Field. Plus, win tickets to see comedian Jim Gaffigan as he performs this October at the Eccles Theater. Enter now. Text the word contest to 57500 or go to KSLNewsRadio.com/contests.
Transform your old, outdated kitchen with Half Price Granite. For a limited time, Half Price Granite is offering special pricing starting at $25 per square foot installed. That's lower than most big box stores. These prices are some of the lowest around. Granite, quartz, marble, and quartzite, all starting at $25 per square foot installed. Call 801-486-1700 or visit halfpricegranite.com. Half Price Granite, affordable luxury.
It's blockbuster season at Megaplex Theaters. Make some magical movie memories this weekend with a trip to Megaplex Theaters. Enjoy great food, tasty snacks, and of course, amazing Megaplex popcorn. It's time to celebrate with family and friends with the newest and nicest luxury recliners on the biggest screens at Megaplex Theaters. Megaplex movie tickets are on sale now for the movie with all the feels, Inside Out 2. Details and tickets at megaplextheaters.com. Celebrate blockbuster season at Megaplex Theaters.
I'm Jason Walton, candidate for U.S. Senate. I'm recording from the Tucson sector of our southern border, and nobody's here. Our government should defend our territory, but President Biden, Mitch McConnell, and career politicians are funding war in other countries while the cartels are waging unchecked war here on American soil. I'm standing up to build the wall, end catch and release, and secure the border. Stand with me.
I'm Jason Walton. The cost of food, gas, and interest rates have all risen because career politicians are addicted to spending, causing the federal debt to go up and our money's value to go down. My opponents are all big spending career politicians, but I'll stop runaway inflation by passing a balanced budget amendment, forcing the government to spend only what we give them. I'm Jason Walton, a Republican candidate for U.S. Senate, and I approve this message. Paid for by Friends of Jason Walton for Senate.
Any Hour Services can make sure your AC keeps you cool this summer. Whether you need a tune-up, repair, or just a second opinion about replacing it, call Any Hour Services or visit anyhourservices.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, the operators of the Glen Canyon Dam accidentally let 40,000 acre-feet of water slipped through. Second, even though the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of the FDA approval of the abortion drug mifepristone, some states are still restricting its use. And third, Sandy firefighters had a tricky situation this afternoon. A garage on fire with gunpowder and ammunition inside. 93 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Get deeper insights on the news from Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. Great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson, and as we look at the political landscape, of course, the last few days have been very focused on debates on the Republican side, rolling into the June 25th primary. And we want to spend just a little minute or two talking about the Democratic side of the aisle and what is happening there. There aren't a ton of primary contests that need to be decided, but there are a few. But more importantly, we want to look towards the fall in terms of what the messaging strategy might be, what the state of the land is, and where the emphasis is going to be. And really pleased to have back on the show with us Scott Howell, of course, former Utah State Senate Minority Leader, Biden-Harris surrogate here in the state of Utah, and someone who's just an active leader and influencer here in the state of Utah. And Scott, welcome back to the show.
Oh, thank you very much, Boyd, for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you.
And so let's dive into it a little bit in terms of what's happening on the Democratic Party side of things. Again, there's been a lot of focus, obviously, with debate commission debates and so on, a lot of hotly contested things on the Republican side. Give us the lay of the land as it relates to the Democrats rolling into the 25th of June.
Well, I think you gave your analysis on it spot on. There are no statewide races, both in congressional or for gubernatorial or any of those races on the Democratic side. We're very fortunate to have some great candidates who gathered signatures and made it, they'll be on the ballot. We have had some legislative local races that are going on in the primaries for the state house, but other than that, nothing on the statewide. And I think when you look at what the Democrats are doing right now, I think it's given the GOP those that are running the GOP an opportunity to share their viewpoints through the UDC, the Utah Debate Commission. And I think every smart Democrat that's running for a statewide office paid attention, very close attention to those debates.
Yeah.
And I think they got a lot of information out of them.
Yeah, no question about it. And so let's look towards the fall. And actually, we won't look too far because we also want to look at Vice President Harris will be coming back to the Beehive State coming up on June 28th. Appears to be more of a fundraising effort, not really anything on the public schedule as yet. I know you had the opportunity to host the vice president when she was here as candidate for vice president for the debate in 2020. Give us a sense of your connection there and then what you expect to see from her as she comes to the Beehive State.
Well, Vice President Harris, at the time she was a candidate, as you mentioned, she wanted to go up to This Is the Place monument, which I found very, very interesting. And what I found in her is a deeply insightful human being on the issues ranging from economic policy to social justice. But the thing that caught her attention while we were up there, and she kept saying this to me, Scott, have you read this plaque? Have you read this plaque? And as you know, it really celebrates the pioneer heritage coming into the valley. And I finally said to her, Kamala, I haven't read all those in detail. I've skimmed over, and she said, well, you should read them because they're important information. And I think the thing that really inspired me about her is how she looked out over the valley, and she said, Brigham Young was certainly one of the great leaders in the country, in the world.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciated that. So I think that having that discussion up there on Capitol Hill started this relationship, and I'm thrilled that she's coming out because if anything will help our Democrats, it will energize them to see that there is hope in a pretty red state, but there's an opportunity to rally. Right now, she's doing a fundraiser, and we believe there's going to be a public type of interaction. The last time the president came, as you know, he announced to all of our veterans the PAC Act, which gave them protection. And so I think it's going to come with I'm kind of being careful here because, as you know, the Secret Service does not like you even to breathe
That's
anything.
right.
I think there might be something public.
Oh, good. Well, that's good. We hope that happens. We hope she swings by KSL, and I've got a seat just ready for the vice president if she wants to come chat. Just a chat. Just she and I and a few of our friends. So
there you go.
Great. Well, real quickly in our last couple of minutes here, one of the things that I have been really fascinated with this year, both in red states and in blue states, is those that are really, as candidates, that are pivoting things to the national politics versus those that are focusing on the policy and the implications at the local level. It's always an interesting strategy decision for candidates. How do you see that for Utah Democrats in terms of, do you turn it national? Do you turn it local? Is it more policy, or is it more about the top of the ticket, the Biden-Trump battle, or is it more about some policy here at home?
Well, it's that sticky wicket, as you know. You have to be very careful on how you play this. But I've always said, play it the way you really feel as a candidate.
Yeah.
Don't try and mask it. Don't try and hide. I heard your last segment with John Dougal, and quite frankly, as I heard him articulate about where he was, and I mean, that was a big challenge that he threw out there to say where he was on the national scene.
Yeah.
But I think a good politician, and I look at Mitt Romney as being one who will just tell the facts as they are. And I think the Democrats need to stick up to own the presidency. And while they might have difference of opinion on President Biden, he's still at the top of the ticket. And for Democrats to hide from that and not be real with the audience, I just think that's disingenuous. Be bold and say where you feel. And by the way, if you don't support the current president, acknowledge that. But you have to look at the good things that they've done and capitalize on those and focus on it, and you'll do just fine in your election. But to hide and play the game of, I'm just going to go this way because the last poll said that President Trump was this much in glory in Utah, or President Biden was this much. I don't think that's being fair to the constituency.
Yeah.
And try and educate the constituency of why you believe that.
Yeah, such great insight, and that's why we have you on the show, Scott, because you're going to call balls and strikes, whether you're blue or red, whether you love the top of your ticket or you detest it. You got to be honest. You got to be authentic, and we appreciate that. Scott Howell, thanks so much for joining us, as always.
Thanks a million, Boyd. It's always a pleasure.
All right, that's Scott Howell joining us. And so we've looked at both sides of the political aisle rolling into June 25th primaries and ultimately what will happen in the fall. We all got to be educated because your voice matters, your vote counts. Make sure you do your homework. Be ready. All right, that wraps up hour number one of Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We'll step aside for some top of the hour news. Don't go anywhere. Big hour number two, we'll kick it off with Ukraine and U.S. conversation coming up next.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. Firefighters had a tricky situation with a garage fire in Sandy this afternoon. There was gunpowder and ammunition inside the garage near 9100 South and 13th East, and it was going off. They used a ladder truck to spray water on it from above. The detached garage was a total loss. We've all seen an intersection littered with campaign signs and might even have been tempted to take one down, but Orem police are proving you can face charges for doing that. Here's KSL News Radio's Eric Cabrera.
Orem PD were tipped to a man stealing campaign signs, exercised a search warrant, and found several signs on his property and will face charges of theft. Then Mike Maurer, senior advisor of community outreach at the governor's office, tweeted on X a doorbell cam photo from a friend that shows a thief stealing a Governor Cox sign from their front yard. His caption, "No need to do that, ma'am. We can get you one for yourself without having to borrow from your neighbors."
Stealing a campaign sign falls under Utah's election law with penalties that include losing the right to vote. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Police in Winter Park, Colorado believe one moose is responsible for a couple of attacks this week. The first was a man out walking his dogs on a leash. That man got tossed into the air and the dogs are injured. A jogger was also attacked. They think it's a female moose that was defending her young. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down 65 points on the day. The NASDAQ is up 59. And our KSL weather, hot tomorrow, but then it cools off. That's next. KSL News Time 2:01.
Here's a way to get breaking news updates anywhere you go.
At the store or in a work meeting, you can get breaking news on your phone.
You can quickly read it, swipe, or click for more. It's super discreet, super fast.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Put your phone on DND. That means that do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always sing with me. So put your phone on DND. That means that do not disturb when you're driving. And when you're going from point A to B, I need you to stay safe, please, so always remember this beat.
Don't drive distracted. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
What was that? That is business phone bliss with the Ooma Cloud Phone System. It handles all our voice, video, and messaging needs.
You sound very...
Calm? I am. Ooma has everything I need to run my business more efficiently, like virtual receptionist, call routing, and video conferencing. And it starts at just $19.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Nice. Find your business comm at ooma.com/radio.
The Utah RV Palooza is back and packed with new and used RVs to fit every budget. June 20th through the 22nd, come to the largest free RV show in the area at the shops at Southtown and Sandy. You'll find monthly payments starting under $149 on approved credit for select new RVs like a new 2024 GoPlay 19BH travel trailer. You'll also find huge savings on used motorhomes. We've got select 2023 and 2024 low mileage models from Thor and Jayco heavily discounted. The best deals don't last, so start shopping now at Bishes.com/Utah RV Palooza Sandy. And make sure you tour the full lineup of GoPlay travel trailers, one of the fastest growing RV brands in Utah. Get special financing options like 90 days of all play and no pay OAC. And if you've got a trade, we want it. Get an additional $1,000 towards your travel trailer or fifth wheel trade-in. See dealer for details. Admission is free to the Utah RV Palooza, Thursday, June 20th through Saturday, June 22nd at the shops at Southtown and Sandy. Sponsored by Bishes RV. Stock number L75163 based on 20% down, 8.99% APR for 180 months. Subject to prior sales. See dealer for details.
When you're getting a new roof installed, you don't want to wonder, when are they going to be done? Or even worse, what are they doing up there? You'll never have to ask when you hire IWC Roofing, because their team of certified installers will be texting you pictures from the roof. You're going to know exactly what's going on and what you're getting for your money. And on most homes, they'll do the entire job in one day. In, out, cleaned up, and they'll even power wash your driveway just to say thank you. Now, you think you'd pay a premium for this level of service, but IWC does so many roofs. They get the material for less, and they pass the savings on to you. IWC is an Owens Corning certified platinum contractor. Of course, financing is available. Even better, their summer special, up to $2,000 off your quote. But you have to make the call. $2,000 off right now. Call IWC Roofing, 801-232-5690. That's 801-232-5690. Or go to IWCRoofingUtah.com.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We're in the final cleanup stages of the earlier vehicle fire in Parley's Canyon, eastbound I-80, about a mile prior to Lambs Canyon. What's left is still on the right. And a crash for Weber County drivers. This is in West Haven. An accident involving a motorcycle at the intersection of 4000 South, 4700 West. Hey, Utah, summer has come alive. All better in a new vehicle from Murdoch Hyundai. Receive 2.99% for 5 years on a Tucson Limited or 3.49% for 5 years on an Elantra SEL. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Hot again today with a high near 100. The cooling trend starts tomorrow with highs in the 70s expected next Monday and Tuesday. And right now we're at 96 degrees. It's sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, G7 leaders from across Europe and the Prime Minister of Japan gathered in Italy today. This gathering comes at a turning point for the future of Europe. As the Russian war continues against Ukraine, their invasion there, supporting the war-torn country and our ally was the top agenda item discussed at the gathering. That's where the headlines have all been. We want to go past that. The President of the United States and the President of Ukraine signed a historic joint security agreement. Let's find out what that's all about. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
We've been following this throughout the course of the day, so this is really just breaking in the last hour. A press conference was held with President Biden and the President of Ukraine, President Zelensky, after signing a historic joint security agreement. The aim of this security agreement, of course, is to end the stalemate on the battlefield and rebuild Ukraine when the war with Russia is over. This is really significant in terms of what took place today, what it actually means. And so we want to dig into that and get beyond just the headlines of what I think is a historic moment. And the test, of course, is always what's in the details of all of this. So let's begin. At the signing of this 10-year security deal, President Biden talked about the goal of this agreement in boosting Ukraine's military and I think equally as important, its economic recovery after the war with Russia is over.
Our goal is to strengthen Ukraine's credible defense and deterrence capabilities for the long term. A lasting peace for Ukraine must be underwritten by Ukraine's own ability to defend itself now and to deter future aggression. The United States is going to help ensure that Ukraine can do both, not by sending American troops to fight in Ukraine, but by providing weapons and ammunition, expanding intelligence sharing, continuing to train brave Ukrainian troops at bases in Europe and the United States, and supporting Ukraine's economic recovery as well as its energy recovery after Russia has repeatedly targeted Ukraine's energy grid with massive attacks in the futile attempt to break the will of the Ukrainian people.
I think it was important for the president to point all of those things out in terms of the resiliency of the Ukrainian people. I think that was an important message to the people of Ukraine, that the world is watching, that we're not going to retreat. And while a lot of the aid to Ukraine has been a drip, 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 and just in time and sometimes just a little late, I think this was an important step forward in terms of let's be a little more proactive and not give Ukraine just what it needs to survive, but what it actually needs to win and push Russia back. So the context and content of the agreement that the president announced would be a big chunk of that would be a $50 billion package, which comes primarily from frozen Russian assets that would be unlocked and put to use towards military and economic goals for Ukraine.
The G7 achieved a significant outcome this week. I'm very pleased to share that the G7 signed a plan to unlock $50 billion from the proceeds of those frozen assets, to put that money to work for Ukraine. Another reminder to Putin, we're not backing down.
So that might be the most important message, I think, coming out of all of this, that this was really going to be funded through $50 billion of frozen Russian assets. These would be unlocked, that they would be able to both help Ukraine in building their military capability, but also the economics. And remember, Russia has really gone after the energy grid in Ukraine, and so that's an important component to all of this. And the fact that it won't be U.S. tax dollars or European tax dollars that will be funding this, that it will be Russian assets. Now, of course, the announcement of that raised the ire of Russia, who's already responded with some pretty high-level rhetoric in terms of the consequences of the United States and the G7 allies going at it this way, using those frozen Russian assets. And, of course, they made threats that they also have foreign assets that are inside of Russia, that those might be seized. And so there may be a little back and forth here, but it was interesting that the Russian response was so swift in terms of, hey, there will be consequences going both ways in all of this. Now, President Biden described that one aspect of this war that's finally beginning to take its toll on Russia is the economic sanctions on the Russian banking system. The United States is attempting to increase that pressure with further sanctions on the Russian economy. This is important. Take a listen to President Biden.
The United States is also intensifying pressure on Russia. Yesterday, the U.S. Treasury Department made clear any bank anywhere in the world that deals with sanctioned Russian banks, companies, or individuals risk being sanctioned themselves. And we announced roughly 300 new sanctions on individuals and companies that are helping Russia with war efforts.
So as the president continued on in this conversation, again, this was a joint press conference with President Biden and President Zelensky of Ukraine. And the president laid that out pretty specifically in terms of the pressure that we hope to continue to press on the Russian economy and with countries that are enabling Russia to sort of do the workaround. And we talked about this at the very outset of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And as initial sanctions began to be applied, the challenge with those kinds of sanctions is if there are even just a few bad actors who are willing to help Russia work around them, then they really don't have a lot of impact. And so I think the president coming out today and saying, look, we're gonna tighten that political pressure. We're going to tighten that economic pressure. We're going to make sure that the sanctions that have been levied against Russia not only apply to Russia, but anyone who's helping Russia go around the system. That's really important messaging, I think, from President Biden today. Then President Biden framed this agreement and the work that's been done at the G7 summit as just one more commitment to stand with Ukraine and to show Vladimir Putin that he cannot simply wait out the world, hoping the world will get distracted while he tries to annex another country.
2.5 years ago, Putin unleashed a brutal war in Ukraine. And it's been a horrifying ordeal for the Ukrainian people who are so brave and incredible. It's also been a test for the world. Would we stand with Ukraine? Would we stand for sovereignty, freedom, and against tyranny? The United States, the G7, and countries around the world have consistently answered the question by saying, yes, we will. We will say it again. Yes, again and again and again. We're going to stand with Ukraine.
So we're going to stay with the conversation. This is such an important one, in my view, in terms of what's going on in the world. We often talk about American presidents wanting to focus domestically. President Biden would love to do that, but the world happens, and places like Ukraine happen. Russia invades Ukraine. You have things in the Middle East. And so this was an interesting moment for the president, being forced on a world stage to do some of the hard work and heavy lifting of diplomacy. I think this is an important announcement agreement, so we're going to stay with the conversation. When we come back, we'll get some of the response from this press conference from President Zelensky of Ukraine, some final thoughts from President Biden, and then we'll look at how it impacts both the political side, but also the military and economic side here at home. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. Yes, it's hot.
Triple-digit forecasts are catching a few people off guard.
But Utah's waterways are not a cool-down option.
Multiple incidents along the Provo River.
Stay out of the water.
Stay safe, Utah, and stay here for updates on the early and short-lived June heat wave.
We have you covered at KSL News Radio.
Here's a question of the day for you. How fast do you want to let go of that weight you've been carrying around that you'd just like to get rid of? Well, you can make it really fast. It's one click away. All you have to do is go to sodaweightloss.com, click on Request a Nutritionist Callback, and within no time, a Soda nutritionist will be on the line talking to you about your weight loss goals, and you'll get to save 15% as part of your Soda weight loss journey. So just click. That's all you have to do. I love it when things click. You've heard me describe it before. My favorite click these days is the clicking of my belt. After losing 37 pounds in just 90 days, as the pounds and inches left, my belt clicked a heck of a lot more. And it works because Soda just clicks. It's based on science. It's not on any kind of fads or potions or lotions or anything else. It's real science with a real nutritionist and counting every step along the way with someone who can help you. So check it out at sodaweightloss.com, SOTA weightloss.com.
I'm Frank Myler, candidate for Utah State Attorney General, and I approve this ad. Utah needs an AG who knows the criminal justice system and will fight crime on day one. There is no time for a huge learning curve. The AG is the chief law enforcement officer of the state. I am the only candidate who has prosecuted criminals. I am ready to hit the ground running fighting crime. Vote for me, Frank Myler, for Utah Attorney General. This ad paid for by the committee to elect Frank Myler Attorney General.
Healthcare with human kindness is here. It's at Common Spirit Health.
Hospitals, clinics, and caregivers, all connected to advance healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Together, we have a common purpose, partnering with you in health and healing using powerful medicine, powerful technology, and the greatest power of all, human kindness. You'll know it when you see it, because human kindness is in every care site and in every caregiver. Common Spirit Health. Hello, human kindness.
Do you know why more homeowners choose Any Hour Services for help when it's time to replace their air conditioners? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and the main reasons people choose Any Hour Services is because of our people, processes, and convenience. People tell us all the time that there's just something different about having an Any Hour Services technician in their home. That's why our over 23,000 Google reviews mention our technicians by name. Another reason is our 7-step install process that we call the Any Hour Difference. It all starts with a needs analysis where you explain what you like and dislike about your current system. This helps us design and size a system that fits your comfort and efficiency preferences as well as your home's airflow requirements. As for convenience, most of our installs are completed in one day. We also have flexible, no money down financing options available, even if you've been told no in the past. So if you've been thinking about getting a new air conditioner, call Any Hour Services and schedule a free estimate today. Google Any Hour Services or schedule online at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Attention talcum powder users. Have you had ovarian or gynecological cancer? A proposed $8 billion plan will pay those who believe they got sick from using talc products like Johnson's Baby Powder and Shower to Shower. Johnson & Johnson maintains its products are safe. You have until July 26, 2024 to vote to accept or reject the plan. For more information, visit officialtalclaims.com or call 888-431-4056. Paid for by LLT Management, LLC.
The smarter way to clean your floors. It's time to make the swap. Swiffer Power Mop.
Introducing the new Swiffer Power Mop, the all-in-one tool that gives you a mop and bucket clean in half the time. The solution's built right in, so no heavy bucket, and the pad has hundreds of scrubbing strips to get deep into grout. Don't mop harder, mop smarter.
Swiffer Power Mop. Swiffer Power Mop.
Pack your picnics, bring your family and friends, and get ready for memorable summer evenings with the Utah Symphony, July 5th through August 9th in Park City. Tickets are on sale now at DeerValleyMusicFestival.org.
Do you worry about how much someone drinks?
Do you feel angry or depressed most of the time? Do you feel neglected or unloved?
Do you feel you attract people who tend to be compulsive or abusive?
Do you have money problems because of someone else's drinking?
Are you afraid or embarrassed to bring your friends home?
Do you feel that if the drinker loved you, she or he would stop drinking?
If you answered yes to any of these questions, you are not alone.
More than half of all adults have a family history of alcoholism.
Not everyone trapped by alcohol is an alcoholic.
Families and friends are suffering too. Al-Anon and Alateen can help. Call 1-866-200-0223 or visit alanon.org/help.
Let me ask you a question. You have a best friend? How big would it shock you if somebody told you that your best friend just killed somebody?
911, what's your emergency?
Someone on the other line said they kidnapped my son, and they're demanding $500,000.
On September 12th, 1995, 12-year-old McKay Everett disappeared from his home in Conroe, Texas. It was a crime that shocked the community because the suspect was so unlikely, so unexpected.
Former high-ranking police official, he'd run for sheriff at one point.
Law enforcement personnel were pretty much split down the middle over whether or not he actually did this.
And to this day, McKay's mother, Paulette, still feels that justice was never truly served.
I've asked myself so many times, what in the world happened?
Ransom is available now. Listen at ransompodcast.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Sandy firefighters were worried about the ammunition stored inside a burning garage. Second, yes, it's illegal to steal campaign signs. One man from Orem is finding out the hard way. And third, a mama moose attacked two people in Winter Park, Colorado. 96 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. Back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. We're staying with the conversation as it relates to what is taking place in Italy. Just a little over an hour ago, a press conference with President of the United States, Joe Biden, and the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, as they talked about this historic agreement being signed by the United States and Ukraine, a 10-year security deal that's really focused on boosting Ukraine's military as well as its economic recovery. It also was an important component in all of this was the G7's decision on a $50 billion loan for Ukraine that is being backed by some of the frozen assets of Russia. There's about $280 billion in Russian assets that have been frozen since the invasion. Hard to believe, back in February of 2022. We're over 2 years into that. And so the fact that those frozen assets could be used as a way to create this $50 billion package for Ukraine was something significant. I do think it was important to note that Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor to President Biden, said that this is something that the United States has been putting a lot of energy and a lot of effort into. He had a briefing just before Thursday morning's meetings and all the events there in Italy with the G7 members. And so, again, leaders from across Europe as well as the Prime Minister of Japan gathered in Italy. And this press conference with President Biden and President Zelensky was important, I think, not only in terms of showing that support for Ukraine and to give the Ukrainian people a little bit of hope. I also think President Biden was focused on shoring up the confidence of our European allies and others who might be in the sights of someone like Vladimir Putin or President Xi of China, that the U.S. would be there, that we will stand with our allies in important times, especially if you have another country that's invading your sovereign territory. So I think all of those things are really crucial. In the press conference, Ukrainian President Zelensky framed this agreement as an important step towards sustainable peace and a bulwark against the threat of Russian aggression in the future.
This is an agreement on security and thus on the protection of human life. This is an agreement on cooperation and thus on how our nations will become stronger. This is an agreement on steps to guarantee sustainable peace, and therefore it benefits everyone in the world because the Russian war against Ukraine is a real global threat.
I thought that was very interesting, and multiple times during this press conference, President Zelensky framed the battle between Ukraine and Russia as a global battle for peace, a global battle against aggressive dictators like Mr. Putin. And so I thought that was a critical piece of that component in terms of President Zelensky trying to frame that in the right way. He also said, and I hope to gain back air control on the battlefield, an important thing in an area where Ukraine has really struggled. That part of this security agreement, again, this new 10-year agreement between the United States and Ukraine, provides F-16 fighter jets to the Ukrainian war effort.
The agreement has good provisions on weapons for our defense, whereas specifically on the supply of fighter squadrons, including but not limited to F-16s. We have worked for a long time for these.
And so as you look at all of that, I think that the air control, I think, is one that we have been the slowest to really acknowledge and recognize. And so much of the policy, I think, has been, can we de-escalate? Can we de-escalate? And it seems that President Biden has finally realized that when it comes to dealing with Vladimir Putin, that you have to lean in and you have to lead out. And you can't just do that by doing a drip, drip, drip de-escalation strategy. You have to give Ukraine what they need to actually win. We've talked about it multiple times on this show that trying to do this 6 feet at a time through trenches and landmines and razor wire is really the war of attrition. And so we know that just in recent weeks, there has been a green light given quietly for Ukraine to be able to use even some of the U.S. weapons to go into Russian territory, to be able to soften up some of those things so that you can make advances and to push Russia back, as opposed to just this front line combat. You got to get that deeper strike capability. So that's been an interesting thing. The announcement in this agreement that it would also include F-16 fighter jets going to Ukraine as part of that. Also, I think a very important component for Ukraine to actually be able to not just defend, but to actually win and push Russia out of its sovereign territory. Finally, the president acknowledged that the president of Ukraine, who's really been the one carrying the full brunt of and load of leading the nation against the Russian military, gave special thanks to President Zelensky, to the people of Ukraine, to the soldiers of the Ukrainian forces, and to the people of America.
And of course, I want to thank every Ukrainian soldier, all our people whose courage made this level of alliance between Ukraine and the United States possible. And I'm proud of our people and what Ukraine can do, and I'm very grateful to all Americans, to everyone in America who strengthens American leadership.
So again, if you're just joining us, an important announcement today coming out of Italy, the G7. And of course, the G7 consists of Britain, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, and the United States. Those 7 countries have come together, have supported a $50 billion loan package, again, mostly relying on the frozen assets of Russia that were, again, frozen when they invaded Ukraine back in February of 2022. Also announced today, as we've been covering, that President Biden and President Zelensky announced a new 10-year pact to aid Ukraine that will be both military and economic aid for the country. And that's going to be important not only in the short term, because so much of their economy and their energy infrastructure has been taken out by Russian forces. That's going to have to be rebuilt, not only to just keep the war effort going to defend their sovereign territory, but when the war is over, to rebuild their economy and their independence moving forward. So all of those historic and important items coming out of Italy today. Again, I thought President Biden did a nice job today in terms of framing what this security deal was and was not, why it mattered not just to the G7 and to those in Europe, but to all the world in terms of the battle for peace and for freedom and liberty, and to stop the aggression of someone like Vladimir Putin. Those are all critical pieces. We'll continue to follow all of those here on Inside Sources. We're going to step aside for some bottom-of-the-hour news, but don't go anywhere. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Camille N. Johnson, who is the General Relief Society president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, on another historic moment that took place yesterday that will impact women and children all around the world. You don't want to miss that coming up next.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bonas. KSL's top local story this hour. We have breaking news. Former State Senator Peter Knudsen has died at the age of 86. He served as a city councilman and the mayor of Brigham City, as well as in the legislature. Governor Spencer Cox called him a good friend and said his passion for the people of our great state and local government will never be forgotten. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Republicans in the U.S. Senate blocked a Democrat bill that would have required the Supreme Court to adopt an ethical code of conduct. Justices Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas have been criticized for accepting lavish gifts and hospitality from conservative donors. At the G7 summit in Italy today, President Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky signed a bilateral security agreement.
We have signed the strongest agreement between Ukraine and the U.S. since our independence.
And leaders of the G7 countries have agreed to provide a $50 billion loan to help Ukraine in its fight against Russia. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average down on the day 65 points. The NASDAQ closing up 59. The S&P 500 was up 12 today. And our KSL weather. Another hot day before things cool off. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
News doesn't just mean information or dates.
It's the story of our local history being told in real time.
Be a part of the story. This is Tim Hughes and Amanda Dixon.
We hope to be a part of your story. We have you covered on KSL News Radio.
We have some exciting news to announce.
Master Electrical Service has joined Mountain Home Services.
And I can speak from experience, Deb. Mountain Home Services installed my furnace years ago, and it's been amazing.
And we know Master Electrical Service has been your trusted source for all your electrical needs, like your EV chargers, your generators, and recessed lighting.
But now that they've joined Mountain Home Services, they can help you with your HVAC, your heating and air, as well as your plumbing.
And it comes with that upfront pricing guarantee. I love the upfront pricing guarantee because it means no hidden fees.
100% satisfaction guarantee as well.
Master Electrical Service has been the name you trust since 1954.
They're the company we trust, and so can you.
Check them out now at mountainhomeutah.com.
That's mountainhomeutah.com, or give them a call at 801-543-2222. So easy to remember, 801-543-2222.
Hi, I'm Rachel Terry, and I'm running for Attorney General. It's not difficult to tell what a person values. All you have to do is look at their record. As your next Attorney General, I promise to value the rule of law, just like I've done as a practicing attorney for the last 20 years. I promise to value transparent leadership. I promise to value the work of the Attorney General's office, just as I've done for other Utah agencies over the past decade. My record speaks for itself. I won't let you down. Vote Rachel Terry for Attorney General.
Paid for by Rachel for Utah.
Derek Overstreet, founder of the New Millennium Group. We're a financial planning firm. Listen, we're fiduciaries. We have advisors standing by right now to take your call. That's 888-999-6370. 888-999-6370. The reason you're going to want to call is we're going to help you retire 3 to 5 years before you thought possible. Now, imagine how that would be if you could actually retire 3 to 5 years sooner than your plan was. The way we do this is by putting together a step-by-step plan, taking into consideration any rental properties that you have, any pension income that you have, your Social Security. Listen, we put that all together for you in writing. It will allow us to build your income based on inflation. Inflation has been rapidly rising. You and I both need a plan that whatever we start out our income at, in 5 or 10 years, we're going to need 40% more income. So if you're one of those people listening and you'd like a plan in writing, give us a call at 888-999-6370. That's 888-999-6370, or go to utahsfinancialplanner.com.
Les Olson IT is now a Rico Graphic Arts and Production Systems dealer. Rico chose Les Olson because of our reputation for superior service and national recognition. Les Olson IT chose Rico Graphics because they're the best value compared to other commercial-grade printers. Rico excels in high volume, high speed, high resolution, and offers an exciting fifth color. Learn more at lesolson.com.
Les Olson IT.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
We are back to a quiet commute on all the Valley freeways. We do have a crash in Murray at 3rd West Winchester Street. That's about 6500 south. Studies show being in nature improves your mental and physical health. Can't get out of the city? Take a nature break at Tracy Aviary in Liberty Park. More information and tickets at tracyaviary.org. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
Hot again tomorrow with a high near 100, and cooling trend starts tomorrow with highs in the 70s, expected next Monday and Tuesday. And right now we're at 97 degrees. It's sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, we often talk on this program about what it means to make a difference, to do something every day that makes a difference. And we often talk about one of the oldest and largest women's organizations in the world, the Relief Society of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who is out there providing relief, making a difference, not only for members of the Church of Jesus Christ, but for people in communities all around the world. Yesterday, there was a historic announcement, in my view, in terms of that difference and the impact, and really thrilled to have joining us live on the program today. We have the Relief Society General President, Camille N. Johnson, as well as the second counselor in that presidency, Kristen M. Yee. And welcome to both of you. And President Johnson, I'll go straight to you on this historic announcement. You have been tasked to really lead out in terms of having an impact and making a difference for women and children around the world. Tell us what's just taken place.
Oh, thank you, Boyd. We're happy to be here with you today. The Relief Society General Presidency is leading this global effort to improve health and well-being for women and children all around the world. And yesterday, I had the pleasure of announcing the church's donation, a $55.8 million contribution to this effort that will bless families and communities. It's really an investment in the future. We know that when we bless the lives of women and children, we strengthen homes, communities, and nations. So it's an historic time, and we look forward to working with other global collaborators in a new convening strategy, bringing them together, working together. We trust that we will be able to provide relief and help to more than 12 million children and 2.7 million women in 12 high-need countries in the next year.
That is extraordinary. That is making a difference in a significant way. 12 million children under the age of 5, 2.7 million expectant and new mothers, part of that in some extraordinary places around the world. Both of you, as world religious leaders, have had the opportunity to be on the ground in many of these places. And Sister Yee, I know you were recently in Mexico. Give us a sense in terms of that experience. I love your framing of this. You often talk about it in terms of self-sacrifice because it's not just the material stuff. It's not just the food and the care packages and the essential supplies. It's actually much more than that. Explain that for us.
Absolutely. I had a chance to be in Guadalajara, Mexico recently, and I met with several Relief Society leaders as they shared with me their experiences in gathering others to meet their local needs. So as much as the church is representing on a global scale these efforts to convene these organizations to meet a very large and important need, we also hope sisters, like these sisters in Mexico, can see the needs in their own community. These are covenant women, and they often step in to meet a need, and they follow the Spirit to gather those that have the right resources and the talents and the gifts and the desire to be a part of this work. And so these sisters in Mexico, it was touching to see what they've done. They've had their own experiences where someone has provided relief to them. And so as they see the need, they step in and gather others to meet that need. It's something each of us can do in our own homes, our communities, our neighborhoods. And so we hope that as sisters hear about that, as they also think of it as, what can I do in my own sphere? What influence has the Lord placed me in? What sphere of influence has he placed me in? And then to be guided by the Spirit to know what to do. That is the hope, is that we see this grand scale, that we're a part of this, that the Relief Society is leading this effort, but also in their own communities and homes, they can be a part of it by assisting and blessing those in their families and those in their neighborhoods. And so that is our hope.
And to me, that's the essence of it. It's big in nature, and it's individual, one-on-one in terms of scope. And I love that component to this. And President Johnson, you and I have talked about on any given Sunday, millions of women around the world leading, influencing, impacting other members of the Church of Jesus Christ, as well as those in their own community. And President Johnson, you mentioned this idea of convening, and convening in a new way. I look at some of the organizations that you are convening and partnering with. Give us a sense of the backstory. We always say that the day a journey begins is not the day it begins. I know you've been part of a lot of conversations that led to this extraordinary $55.8 million announcement that came yesterday.
Yeah, well, the backstory is exciting, and it is one of bringing together these 8 global humanitarian organizations, ones we've worked with in the past and we have confidence in, bringing them together in a new way. Often these NGOs function in isolation, working on the one specialty that they really excelled at. What we're hoping to do is bring them together, to bring to the table their special expertise. And as they collaborate and bring their skill set, their people, their resources together, our efforts are going to go farther. Our dollars are going to go farther, because these groups have come together. They're starting to see their work differently. Rather than siloed, they're starting to see that as they cooperate and bring their best efforts to the table, we will accomplish so much more in this collaborative convening strategy. But that is just the way our local units operate. Relief Society leadership convene the women and the men in their local units to accomplish the needed work. So they identify needs, and working together with the ward council, they meet those needs in a convening strategy.
And many times, even that is, it's already happening, isn't it? Every single
Yes.
day. I'm thinking with ministering. These sisters convene, they counsel about ministering assignments, they counsel about temporal and spiritual needs, and then together they meet that. And sometimes they meet that through their own ward, sometimes they bring in community resources, but they're already doing this. This is something we are doing. We hope they attach that and connect that to the cause.
Yeah, I love that. And it is coming together, sitting in council, trying to figure that out. Sometimes we do get a little overwhelmed of all the needs around the world and say, well, I can't do this and I can't be part of that. But everybody can do something in their local community. And it seems to me that this convening strategy will actually put the right resources with the right conveners in those communities that can really make a difference. President Johnson, maybe you can elaborate on that just a little bit.
Yeah, so the 8 groups are CARE International, Catholic Relief Services, Helen Keller International, IDE, MAP International, Save the Children, the Hunger Project, and Vitamin Angels. And each of these groups have expertise. Some have expertise in making sure that we get multiple micronutrient supplementation, referred to as MMS, having increasing access to that. It makes a huge difference with respect to maternal health and also the well-being of those babies that are delivered. Some of them have great expertise in that. Others have expertise in dietary diversity. Others have expertise in birthing outcomes. And some know community health systems and how to better accomplish national policy goals. So you see that as they bring their expertise to the table, we've convened them. They bring that expertise and their resources to the table. Combining those resources, we're just going to get a lot more accomplished. And that's why we can set our sights high and our goals high, affecting 12 million children and 2.7 million women this next year, in the next 12 months. That's the impact we expect to have take place.
I look at some of the areas that will be targeted in terms of places like Bangladesh and Cambodia, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Ghana, Kenya, amongst many others. And Sister Yi, as you look at that, to me, this is another one of those, if you looked at it from a worldly institution, you'd look at structure and you'd worried about organizing and who's in charge of what. This is about influence and impact. And it seems to me that the women of the Relief Society are organized in such a way that they're able to influence in those local communities because they've learned how to read, or they've learned how to teach, or they've learned how to speak, or they've learned how to convene people to solve big problems.
Absolutely. When you say lead, you think of Covenant Women lead, and they lead by the Spirit. That's what makes Relief Society different. Relief Society is a divine organization that has the Spirit with it, because the Lord has given us the blessing of being able to bring His relief, both temporally and spiritually, to others. So that's what makes this different. And these sisters, if you can imagine, Boyd, if each sister prayed and thoughtfully thought about what they can do to contribute, what they are doing to contribute, what would happen across the world as nearly 8 million sisters see themselves as a part of this effort for the Relief Society. It would be pretty incredible.
Fantastic. And then finally, President Johnson, we know this is not an end. This announcement is just the beginning of all of this. As you look forward, again, knowing this great task that you have been given as the General Relief Society president with your counselors and with the women of the world, what do you see looking out on the horizon in terms of this impact and what it will do in terms of becoming a model for future opportunities to make a difference?
Well, this piece that was announced just yesterday is part of a global initiative that's broader than child nutrition. It includes child nutrition, but also maternal and newborn care, immunizations, and education. So there's so much work to be done in each of these areas, but we believe that this new convening strategy is going to bring together the very best organizations around the world committed to the same objective that is ours. That is to care for those in need in the way that the Savior would. And we believe that we'll be able to take on some of these bigger objectives through this convening strategy and with these good people who are like-minded to accomplish this good work.
Fantastic. It is an extraordinary thing to watch, and we know the best is yet to come. Again, big thanks to General Relief Society President Camille N. Johnson, and also second counselor in that presidency, Kristen M. Yee. Thanks to both of you for joining us today. And this extraordinary announcement, this $55.8 million to this convening group of organizations that will impact over 12 million children under the age of 5, 2.7 million expectant and new moms in just the next year is just an extraordinary thing. And this is what having an impact and making a difference looks like. This is what it acts like. And thanks to both of you for joining us today.
Thank you, Boyd.
Thank you.
Great perspective there, an extraordinary effort. And if you want to be part of that, really simple. You can do this right in your own neighborhood. Just go to caring.churchofjesuschrist.org. There's 25 ways to participate in the global initiative for women and children. And it starts right in your own neighborhood, right in your own community. So caring.churchofjesuschrist.org, 25 ways to participate in the global initiative for women and children. We'll be right back with some final thoughts on Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio.
My wife and I always loved doing everything together. Jiu-jitsu, kayaking, and intimacy was always on point. It was around my early 30s when I noticed a downward trend. Watching a lot of TV, putting on weight, and just full of self-doubt. I had tried another men's clinic with disappointing results. It's the personalized treatment I receive at Revive Men's Health that has been the complete game changer for me. I've got my energy and motivation back, I'm feeling stronger than I did in my 20s, and it made me a much better husband to my wife.
I'm Eric Ramos, healthcare provider at Revive Men's Health. If you are always feeling tired or moody, have a difficult time sleeping, or decreased libido, you may be suffering from low testosterone.
Book your free T-check and exam at Revive Men's Health, Salt Lake City. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to GAWon'tWait.com.
Paid for by Lyman for Utah.
In 2020, COVID changed our lives. We were looking for answers. We were scared. We hoped the government would give us some help. And that government betrayed us. Government officials chose to exploit this moment and to enrich their friends. Our state bought masks that didn't protect, tests that did not work. People lost faith in our government institutions. We have a chance to fix this. We can vote for something different. If you feel the way I do, I'm asking for your vote.
Phil Lyman for governor.
A fiduciary has the regulatory obligation to put your best interest first. Trajan Wealth is a financial fiduciary for your investments. With Trajan Wealth, the more you make, the more we make. Our interests are aligned. Most other financial advisors are brokers held to a lesser standard and are paid an upfront commission to sell you something. Call Trajan Wealth
801-899-7600. That's 801-899-7600.
Advisory services offered through Trajan Wealth LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.
The fight to defeat the swamp, defend our constitutional liberties, and put America first starts in Utah with conservative outsider Trent Staggs. As mayor of Riverton, Staggs stood up to Rhino Mitt Romney, fought against unconstitutional government COVID lockdowns and mandates, and Staggs was the first candidate to endorse President Donald Trump. Now, conservative Trent Staggs will continue to defend our conservative values by taking the fight to Washington, D.C. and defeating the swamp. In Congress, Staggs will partner with fellow conservative Rand Paul to protect our constitutional liberties, end taxpayer-funded handouts to Ukraine, secure our border, and deport illegal aliens. That's why Trent Staggs has earned President Trump and Senator Rand Paul's complete and total endorsement. A proven conservative, taking the fight to the Washington swamp. Trent Staggs for U.S. Senate. Protect Freedom PAC paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. www.protectfreedompac.com.
The Utah RV Palooza is back and packed with new and used RVs to fit every budget. June 20th through the 22nd, come to the largest free RV show in the area at the shops at Southtown and Sandy. You'll find monthly payments starting under $149 on approved credit for select new RVs like a new 2024 GoPlay 19BH travel trailer. You'll also find huge savings on used motorhomes. We've got select 2023 and 2024 low mileage models from Thor and Jayco heavily discounted. The best deals don't last, so start shopping now at Bishes.com/Utah RV Palooza Sandy. And make sure you tour the full lineup of GoPlay travel trailers, one of the fastest growing RV brands in Utah. Get special financing options like 90 days of all play and no pay OAC. And if you've got a trade, we want it. Get an additional $1,000 towards your travel trailer or fifth wheel trade-in. See dealer for details. Admission is free to the Utah RV Palooza, Thursday, June 20th through Saturday, June 22nd at the shops at Southtown and Sandy. Sponsored by Bish's RV. Stock number L75163 based on 20% down, 8.99% APR for 180 months. Subject to prior sale. See dealer for details.
It's blockbuster season at Megaplex Theaters. Make some magical movie memories this weekend with a trip to Megaplex Theaters. Enjoy great food, tasty snacks, and of course, amazing Megaplex popcorn. It's time to celebrate with family and friends with the newest and nicest luxury recliners on the biggest screens at Megaplex Theaters. Megaplex movie tickets are on sale now for the movie with all the feels, Inside Out 2. Details and tickets at MegaplexTheaters.com. Celebrate blockbuster season at Megaplex Theaters.
Getting help with plumbing repairs is easier than you think. All you have to do is call Any Hour Services or schedule an appointment at anyhourservices.com. No one helps more homeowners than Any Hour Services.
Dave and Dujanovic.
If you're driving to work or you're driving the kids to a soccer game, we're your in-car companions.
People will come up to me and say, "Oh, I talk to you every day. You don't realize it because I'm talking at the radio, but I talk to you every day."
Listen for Dave and Dujanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, retired State Senator Peter Knudsen has passed away at the age of 86. Second, Republicans in the U.S. Senate have blocked a bill that would have required the Supreme Court to adopt ethics rules for justices. Third, if you missed the Sundance Film Festival in January, you'll be able to see some of those films this summer. 97 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It's great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. If you missed any portion of the program today, all you need to do is go to kslpodcast.com and just go to Inside Sources, and you can look at any of the individual segments of the show, all the extraordinary guests that we had the opportunity to chat with today. And as always, it's a great way to go back and dig just a little bit deeper and to think a little bit deeper about some of the conversations we've had about high-level policy, big-time politics, and most importantly, the principles that actually drive the things that matter most in all of this. And today we had some really fascinating conversations. We had Dr. John Kenneth White joined us for a really interesting conversation about history. And I want to spend just a minute on that. I've said it so many times on this show that the things that we ignore, the things that we forget, our children are not likely to know. And the things that our children don't know, our grandchildren aren't going to possess, including things like liberty and freedom and civility. And on the list goes. And so in our conversation with John Kenneth White, we talked about the fact that history is not just being rewritten. Part of the reason it can be rewritten is because nobody knows it to begin with. So in other words, a young person who hasn't developed a good baseline in terms of history, and if someone introduces something as history, they have nothing to compare it to. So it's very difficult for them to get to what we always want to get to on the show, the truth. Not someone's opinion, not someone who's trying to position a political positioning or posturing. What is the truth? And I think one of the challenges we have so much of our education, as we've talked about, is centered on recall so that kids can pass tests. So they can pass tests, so schools get funded, pass tests so you can get into the right college or university, and it's all about recall, as opposed to reflection and reasoning and digging a little deeper. And we've rightly focused a lot of attention over the last years on the STEM subjects, the science, technology, the math, especially those have been a big thrust and a big focus. But I think history's taken a blow because of that. Civic education is almost non-existent in a lot of places. Fortunately, here in the state of Utah, we have some initiatives that are driving that and trying to re-enthrone that into its proper place in our K through 12 education. Of course, on college campuses, we've got to do the same thing. But think about that. If you don't really get into history, and when I say history, I mean warts and all history is important, but not just warts. Not just warts. And not just a superficial skimming of the surface of history. You have to understand context. You have to understand where these people were coming from. You have to understand what the nature of society was. What did a day in the life of look like? And whether that's in the 1800s, the 1700s, or before. But so often in our race and chase, to make sure we're getting all the right things, we're losing that sense of history. And that's a dangerous place. And it's not just the old axiom, if you don't learn history, you're doomed to repeat it. That is true, by the way. But the really sad thing is if you don't know history, your ability to create a better future is lessened and weakened. And so history has an important place, and we have to go there to understand it beyond the headlines or beyond what someone is telling us. One of the things that Professor White mentioned today was far too many people today, what they understand about history, they learned on social media in a series of memes or snarky remarks or someone who had a political agenda or someone who just wanted to rewrite the history or erase the history, none of which is helpful. And so I do think we have to re-enthrone history as part of a rigorous curriculum. That civic education, which both touches on history and then how you take those principles and those lessons and then apply them to the here and now so that we can actually create a better future. None of that happens automatically. None of that happens through osmosis. And so history does matter. And to far too many in the country, again, we've taken our history and we've distilled it down into a bunch of social media memes that don't really tell the story, nor do they provide the context in terms of what's happened, how far we've come in so many different areas, and how we can actually look at our flaws and our foibles, our mistakes, and the times in this country when we haven't lived up to the principles we profess to believe. All of that is history, all of it, not just some of it. But we have to remember it if we're going to create a better future for